I gave away my silver at its all-time high. Here's the shocking reason why. Have you ever considered that the most astute financial decision you could make is one that, on its face, appears to be an act of pure economic folly? Imagine standing at the pinnacle of a market, a moment traders and investors dream of, when an asset you hold has reached a record high. The universal playbook screams one word: sell. You capitalize, you take the profit, you convert that peak value into currency. But what if the greatest return on investment is not found in the transaction itself, but in the complete subversion of that expectation? What if, at that precise moment of maximum value, you chose not to sell but to give it all away? This is not a hypothetical scenario, but a deliberate and calculated strategy that challenges the very core of our modern understanding of wealth. Recently, with the price of silver surging to levels not witnessed in decades, a moment where it flirted with its historical zenith, I undertook this exact action. At a social gathering, surrounded by friends and acquaintances, I made the conscious decision to gift a portion of my silver holdings. Not as a loan, not as a sale, but as an outright gift. To an outside observer, this would seem like a squandering of a prime opportunity, a foolish disregard for market signals. However, I believe this single act will yield dividends far exceeding the metallic value I relinquished. To comprehend this decision, one must first grasp the economic landscape we all inhabit. We live in an era dominated by fiat currency, a system where money is created by government decree and is untethered from any tangible asset. The dollar in your pocket, the numbers in your bank account, are fundamentally instruments of debt, their value perpetually diluted by the relentless expansion of the money supply. This systemic inflation is not a bug but a feature, a slow, insidious erosion of purchasing power that punishes savers and benefits debtors. It is a silent tax on the financially uninformed, a constant headwind against which true wealth creation must struggle. The prevailing problem is a profound lack of financial literacy regarding the very nature of money itself. Generations have now been raised to believe that the paper dollar is the ultimate measure and store of value, when history has consistently proven otherwise. Every unbacked fiat currency in human history has eventually returned to its intrinsic value, zero. We are encouraged to chase digital returns in a stock market propped up by liquidity injections, to speculate on assets with no underlying substance, all while the foundational unit of our economic lives steadily crumbles. The opportunity, therefore, is not just to protect one's own wealth, but to awaken others from this monetary slumber. The catalyst for this awakening cannot be a lecture or a spreadsheet. Abstract arguments about monetary policy and inflation rates often fail to resonate against a lifetime of conditioning. The innovation required is a disruption of perception, an event so unusual it forces a reevaluation of long-held beliefs. This is where the act of giving away silver at its peak price becomes a powerful tool. It is a strategic deployment of a tangible asset to deliver an intangible lesson. It bypasses intellectual debate and creates a direct, physical and emotional connection to the concept of real money and enduring value. When you hand someone a silver coin, especially at a time when its quoted price is making headlines, you are doing more than just giving a gift. You are handing them a piece of history, a tangible store of wealth that has outlasted empires, kings, and currencies for millennia. The initial reaction is predictable: shock, confusion, and a sudden, intense curiosity. The recipient immediately looks up the price and is confronted with a startling number. This is not a trinket, this is an asset of significant, quantifiable worth. This moment of realization, this wow factor, is the critical tipping point where the lesson begins. The recipient's mind is immediately set in motion. Why would someone give this away, especially now? This question opens a door that a mere conversation never could. It prompts independent research. They are no longer a passive listener, but an active investigator. The journey begins with a simple price check, but it rarely ends there. They will inevitably discover the historical price charts, seeing the dramatic peaks and troughs. They will learn that silver has approached these price levels before, only to experience sharp corrections. This discovery might initially lead them to believe its value is fleeting. However, this time is different, and that forms the core of the educational message. The previous spikes in silver's price were often driven by speculative fervor or specific market squeezes within a relatively stable global financial system. Today's price action is occurring against a backdrop of unprecedented global debt, persistent inflation that central banks are struggling to contain, and a growing geopolitical movement away from the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. The fundamental reasons for owning precious metals as a store of value have never been more pronounced, a fact the new owner is now incentivized to uncover for themselves. The primary objective of this strategic gift was to secure their undivided attention. In a world saturated with digital noise and fleeting information, a physical object with palpable weight and historical resonance cuts through the clutter. I could have simply explained the principles of sound money, but words are ephemeral. By driving home from that social event to retrieve the silver and return to place it in their hands, I created an unforgettable experience. The effort and intentionality behind the act amplified its significance, transforming it from a casual gesture into a powerful statement. This statement was not merely about generosity, it was a deliberate act of pedagogical finance. The goal was to ignite a spark of curiosity, particularly in the younger members of the family who also received a piece. Children, unburdened by the financial dogmas that constrain adults, are often more receptive to the simple, powerful logic of real money. For them, holding a historic silver coin is a tactile lesson in value that a classroom lecture could never replicate. It is an invitation to explore, to ask questions, and to begin a journey of financial discovery that will serve them for the rest of their lives. The items I gave away were carefully chosen, representing nearly an ounce of silver in total, distributed among the family. The selection included what is known as constitutional silver, specifically pre-1965 United States coinage. These are not just sterile bars or rounds of bullion, but artifacts that once circulated as everyday money. A barber dime from 1916, a walking Liberty half-dollar, these are pieces of American history. This adds another layer to the educational experience, connecting the abstract concept of wealth preservation to the tangible story of a nation. The ensuing conversation, though brief, was centered on this deep history. I explained how silver has been recognized and used as money for thousands of years, a constant measure of value while governments and their currencies have risen and fallen. The concept of silver as true constitutional money, as opposed to the Federal Reserve notes we use today, was introduced. While time did not permit an exhaustive lesson on monetary history, the seeds were planted. The coins, now in their possession, would serve as a constant reminder of that conversation, prompting them to seek out the details on their own. The immediate impact on the recipients was palpable. There was a sense of fascination and intrigue, particularly from one family member who already had a nascent interest in numismatics. The weight of the coins in their hands, the intricate designs of a bygone era, the sheer reality of holding a precious metal, it all combined to create a profound impression. This is the unique power of silver and gold. They are not just entries on a ledger. They possess a substantive quality that speaks to a primal human understanding of value. You do not need to be a financial expert to recognize that a silver dollar is fundamentally different and more valuable than a paper dollar. Consider the simple comparison. One is a piece of paper, its value dependent entirely on faith in the institution that issued it, a faith that is mathematically certain to be betrayed over time. The other is a tangible element, forged in the heart of a dying star, with intrinsic properties that make it useful in industry and cherished as a store of value. Its worth is not dictated by a central bank's printing press, but by its scarcity, its utility, and thousands of years of human history. The coin is a physical manifestation of wealth, while the paper is merely a claim on wealth, a claim that is becoming more tenuous with each passing day. This lesson in value versus price is critical. The price of silver quoted in dollars will fluctuate wildly. It is subject to market manipulation, paper trading, and speculative whims. But its intrinsic value as a finite resource with enduring demand is a constant. By holding the physical metal, one begins to appreciate this distinction. You start to measure your wealth not in the number of depreciating currency units you can trade it for, but in the ounces you possess. This is a monumental shift in perspective, a liberation from the fiat mindset that keeps most of the population on a treadmill of earning and spending endlessly devaluing currency. The historical context of these coins provides an even richer educational vein to explore. A silver dime, for example, is more than just its metallic content. A coin minted in 1916 is a time capsule. It encourages the new owner to ask, what was happening in the world when this coin was new? Who might have held it? What could it have purchased? This line of inquiry leads them to discover a world before world wars, before the abandonment of the gold standard, a time when money was tangible and its value was trusted. It transforms a financial asset into a historical artifact, making the lesson that much more compelling and memorable. Let us delve deeper into the specific example of Roman history, which I briefly touched upon in my conversation. A Roman denarius, a small silver coin roughly the size of a modern dime, represented a day's wages for a soldier or a skilled laborer. It was a substantial amount of purchasing power packed into a small, convenient form. At that time, silver was far scarcer per capita than it is today, which accounts for its high value. Yet the underlying principle remains unchanged. A specific weight of a precious metal was directly exchangeable for a specific amount of human labor and goods. There was no intermediary, no central bank, no inflationary policy eroding its worth. This historical precedent serves as a powerful indictment of our current system. The US dollar has lost over 97% of its purchasing power since the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913. What a 1913 dollar could purchase now requires more than $30. Conversely, the amount of goods an ounce of silver could purchase in Roman times is not dissimilar to what it can purchase today. While its price has fluctuated, its value as a store of purchasing power over the long term has been remarkably stable. It is the ultimate preserver of wealth, a financial anchor in the storm of fiat currency debasement. The aesthetic quality of the coins themselves cannot be overlooked as a crucial part of their educational power. The classic designs of American coinage, such as the Walking Liberty half-dollar or the Mercury dime, feature allegorical representations of liberty, not the portraits of politicians. They are works of art in their own right, showcasing a level of craftsmanship and symbolic depth that is largely absent from modern utilitarian coinage. These beautiful designs capture the imagination and draw the holder in, encouraging closer examination and fostering a deeper appreciation for the object. Holding a 1-ounce American silver eagle, a modern bullion coin, provides a different but equally important sensation. The recipient remarked on its heft, its solid feel, its substantive nature. Silver is denser than common metals like copper or zinc, and this physical property communicates a sense of permanence and value. Gold is denser still, but silver occupies a unique position. It is accessible enough for the average person to own in meaningful quantities, yet precious enough to be a serious store of wealth. This experience of holding tangible weight in one's hand is a powerful antidote to the weightlessness of digital finance. Of course, I recognized that in giving away this silver, I was reducing my own stack. This was a calculated cost, an investment in education. I promptly visited my local coin shop and replaced the exact amount of silver that I had gifted, purchasing it at the prevailing spot price. This act of replenishment reinforced my own commitment to the principles I was sharing. It demonstrated that my conviction in silver's value was not just theoretical. It was backed by my own capital and actions. The feeling of contributing to someone's potential financial awakening was well worth the transaction cost. The strategy extends beyond grand gestures at social events. A simple yet profound tactic is to use a silver dime as part of a tip at a restaurant, in addition to the full cash tip. A pre-1965 dime, with its distinct silver sheen and old date, is immediately recognizable as something different. The server will notice it. They will likely set it aside, their curiosity piqued. They may ask about it, or they may simply look it up online later. For the cost of a couple of dollars, you have potentially opened a new mind to the world of sound money. It is a small, inexpensive act of financial evangelism. The true power of this approach lies in its scalability and the ripple effect it creates. I may never hear back from the family to whom I gave the silver. The ultimate outcome of that educational seed is out of my hands. It is up to them to water it with their own research and curiosity. But all we can do is sow these seeds of silver wherever we find fertile ground. The goal is not to convince or to preach, but to intrigue. It is to present a puzzle, a paradox. Why would he give this away at its peak? That can only be solved through a journey of self-discovery. This journey will inevitably lead them to understand the fundamental difference between constitutional silver and modern bullion. They will learn that older, circulated coins contain slightly less silver per dollar of face value due to wear, and are traded based on their melt value. They will discover the world of premiums, spot prices, and the various forms in which silver can be owned. They will stumble upon online communities of silver stackers, educational channels, and articles that explain the macroeconomic case for owning precious metals. The initial gift is simply the key that unlocks the door to this entire universe of knowledge. This stands in stark contrast to the closed, opaque world of the mainstream financial system. That system benefits from public ignorance. It thrives on complexity, jargon, and the illusion that managing one's financial life is a task best left to the experts, the very experts who have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo of fiat currency and debt. The world of sound money is the opposite. Its principles are simple, intuitive, and accessible to anyone. It is a transparent system based on the immutable laws of physics and economics, not the whims of a central banking committee. By encouraging others to research silver, you are empowering them to reclaim their financial sovereignty. You are giving them the tools to see the monetary system for what it is, not what its purveyors claim it to be. This education is the ultimate form of wealth preservation, as it is knowledge that can never be inflated away or confiscated. An individual who understands the difference between money and currency is inoculated against the most pervasive financial deceptions. They will make better decisions, protect their family's future, and become a node of stability in their community. The long-term impact of such actions, if adopted by many, could be profound. Imagine if thousands of precious metals owners each decided to gift a single silver coin to someone they felt was receptive. Imagine the thousands of new inquiries, conversations, and research journeys that would be initiated. This is a grassroots movement, a decentralized effort to spread financial truth 1 ounce at a time. It is a peaceful, constructive form of protest against a corrupt and unsustainable monetary system. It does not seek to tear down, but to build up, by equipping individuals with the knowledge to opt out and build their own foundation of real value. The dividends from this strategy are therefore not measured in dollars, but in the potential for exponential growth in awareness. The small financial loss incurred is trivial compared to the gain of a newly awakened mind. That individual may go on to educate their children, their friends, and their colleagues. The initial seed of silver can grow into a forest of financial literacy. This is the highest and best use of a portion of one's wealth, to deploy it strategically for the betterment of others, which in turn strengthens the entire network of sound money advocates. A rising tide of awareness lifts all stacks. Ultimately, my actions were an expression of a core belief. True wealth is not just about accumulating assets, but about building a resilient and informed community. It is about passing on not just financial capital, but intellectual capital. The silver coins were merely the vessel, the medium for a much more valuable message about history, value, and economic freedom. It was a contrarian investment, betting against the short-term allure of profit in favor of the long-term, compounding returns of education and empowerment. So I encourage you to reconsider the purpose of your own stack. Is it merely a passive hedge against a future collapse, or can it be an active tool for change in the present? When the opportunity arises, when you have a captive and curious audience, consider making a small withdrawal. Let them hold a piece of history in their hands. Tell them its story. And if the moment feels right, let them keep it. The puzzled look on their face will be the first sign that your unconventional investment is already beginning to pay off. yielding a dividend of curiosity that could change their financial destiny.